reserve your judgment. Again, I would say watch this episode and listen to this conversation with an open mind from a place of no judgment. And you might be able to relate on many levels. And you also would be able to learn so many lessons and grow as a human being, as a spiritual being. Because I would like to reiterate that we all are energy beings, we are all souls. We come on this earth in this physical form to have certain experiences, to learn our lessons and grow and evolve on the spiritual plane, because this world is nothing but a manifestation of our spiritual aspects. So enjoy this conversation and let me know in the comments, how do you like it? What do you think about what Elaine talks about, and about her experiences that she went through in life? Another reason why I say that try not to judge each other and try not to label each other's experiences and their characters in a certain way, one way or the other, is because whatever we become in this life, beginning from the childhood, it's not personal. We don't bring this into this world from the other side. It's this world who gives us all those experiences that we go through. One person alone can never have any kind of experiences, whether good or bad. So is the society, is the community, is the family, is the friends who make us who we are. So we should be able to have open conversation about our experiences, about what we went through in life. And it shouldn't be personal. It shouldn't be something that we should be ashamed of, or should be hiding it, because we don't want to die with all those experiences and feelings in our heart. Whatever we get from this world, we should just leave it behind, leave it here, and share openly with our society, with our community, so they can learn from this, and we all can grow as a society. Because we learn, if a person goes through certain kind of childhood, this is who they become. If they lack certain relationships, or the care, or the level of care that they should be receiving, this is what happens. And nobody is really the first person to go through certain experiences. There are many people who go through same experiences, and it is time, as a humanity, as a collective consciousness, that we accept those experiences openly, and we are able to have conversations and talk about those experiences and share them with each other in a positive way. We are able to learn from them and grow and evolve, as I said. So let's start this conversation with Elaine, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. All right. So thank you so much, Elaine, for joining me for this beautiful, exciting conversation. You have lived such a beautiful and rich life, and I want to know all about it. And my audience wants to know how it started, where you are right now, and everything in between, because you have played so many exciting roles. And I believe you have a worth of knowledge, wisdom, and experiences to share with our audience, and everybody can learn and see those experiences from their own point of view, and get the message and apply that message onto their own life. Because I just love what your life looks like, and how you have a perspective on your life. But before we dive into that, I would love to ask this signature question that I ask all my guests. What does the word bloom mean to you?
Well, of course, initially I think of a flower, and then I compare that to us as human beings, and that we all have a life. The life force is universal to all living things, and it's up to us to nurture our strengths and to really hone that life force and learn how to trust it, which can take many years. I understand that, but that by doing so, and we do that through self-awareness mainly, we can actually we become more and more and more, and we never stop becoming, because that, just like any organic thing, any organic living thing, a tree, it doesn't know not to become. And and that is what it's all about. And I have learned that through many setbacks, where I was shocked at how I came back with such energy and vigor and passion again. And I thought, life is really amazing, just the energy of life. So when you follow that flow and you get into that flow and you do the work it takes to get there, you will be blooming and blooming over and over again in new ways that you really never thought possible.
This is beautiful. What a lovely definition of the word bloom from your personal experience. And that's exactly right. Right? We should never stop blooming, because in every single moment of this living life, we are blooming. All we have to do is just have that perspective, have that understanding, and see life from that perspective. This is beautiful, Elaine. Thank you for the powerful start. My second question is, what would our audience take from this conversation, and how they can apply these lessons on their own life?
Well, some of the paths I've gone down have been very unconventional. And in mainstream society, I would be judged harshly. I wrote my book, Raising Elaine, to highlight these aspects of my journey, to celebrate the risks that I took in order to become more and more authentic, and to not pay attention to what was supposedly wrong to do, and instead follow an intuition and the creative force that had to come out with me, because two things. One, I have a clinical depression, which started in high school, and the other is that I'm an artist. And unless I was always on a path of creating and authenticity, I would find myself getting symptoms of depression. The other reason I wrote the book is that we tend to label, and women are notorious for doing this. We label each other, and I wanted people to see beyond the labels, to see that there's a person back there who's complex, and we shouldn't rush to judgments when a label is attached to a woman, whether she's called a slut or a whore, or she's called a terrible mother because she's done some tragic thing to her children. Well, what role does society play in society does play a role. We all play a role. Why was she isolated? I was an isolated mother, and I had no one, and I was in a very, very, what could have been tragic circumstances with two young babies. And I just would often think that our society is so superficial in many ways that we don't take the time to consider all the variables that influence a person's actions.
Absolutely. And I can relate to that 100%. And when it comes to, labeling a person, a woman especially, with all kind of labels, sometimes it's the women who play this role more than the men. They judge each other very, very harshly, and they do not appreciate the success and the potential of another woman who is, making strides in the life. And somehow we have this mentality, I think it's across the globe, where we as women feel threatened by another woman's success, while it should be, the opposite. Ideally, the way we talk about it, okay, we empower each other, and, we lift each other up, and we should be lifting each other up, because as a sisterhood, as a society, that's what really, ideally the roles we should be playing. But I think we tend to not do that. And the reason I see is because we think if another woman is more successful, or even she's just successful, it shows negatively on me maybe, and pulling her down and making negative remarks about her success, or not even just appreciating her, encouraging her, I'm doing some kind of a service to myself. What is your take on that? Because I really want to know.
Well, I stayed away from women for the longest time because my sisters were extremely brutal. And they had they together, they were, close, but I was the odd person out, and they were really mean. And so at a young age, I was really wary about women. And then I just found that a lot of women settled for what I couldn't settle for. They wanted to be a part of a group, and so they silenced their voices in order to be in the group. And I could not do that. Again, it didn't sit right with me. It made me extremely uncomfortable. And again, there's like this group mentality that we all agree on this, and we all agree on that, and we all agree that we only talk about sex, like in a most narrowest, superficial way. We don't talk about that's for those kind of girls, and so all this divisiveness and was hard for me to even wrap my head around. So I just was always on my own, and I found that it was lonely at times, but it wasn't confusing.
Yeah.
I didn't have to keep track of what I had to do and say to be accepted into something. That was just just not something I could be a part of. But as a result, I was overlooked and misunderstood over and over again, and yeah, I feel like I led a double life in a lot of different circumstances, because I just felt like they just don't get it. They just will never get it, and so it's better that I give them what they can handle. Yeah.
This is
children, like you would treat a child.
Yeah.
Let's just like give you this much information. Really, it's like there's a real story behind there, but I'm just going to give you a little nugget of it. And even that would like floor people, And I say, oh my God, if I told them the whole story, they would call they would have me like, this is, I don't know, sent out of the workplace.
That is so true. And as you were telling the story about, not settling for what the other people's definition of for a woman is, or for a girl of a certain age is, and I have a very similar experience, and I learned this the hard way, and I'm so glad that it was just this one experience at a very young age that set me on my path of success, and in this path of individual person that I became in a very unique way. The story is very interesting, and I often share it with my guests on my podcast, sometime off camera, sometime on camera, but it's very relevant here. So I used to live abroad. I'm originally from Pakistan, and at the age of 8, I believe, we came back because my mom wanted us to learn the Pakistani culture and the language, because I was forgetting everything and learning the culture that we were living in abroad. So when I came back, all the girls of my age, it was summer vacation, they would have playtime during the afternoons, and they would play with the dolls and the doll house, and they would have that doll party, dolls getting married, having tea party and all kind of stuff. And I was super fascinated, because where I was living, we never played like that. All we were doing is productive activities, drawing, and learning to speak and public speaking and poems, everything. So I was very intrigued and so curious and attracted towards their games. And I said, I want to play with you guys. And they said, no, you don't look like us, and you speak also different language, and we can't have you as our friends. And I was desperate to get into that group, of my age group, and they are having so much fun. And I was missing on it. Then I would watch them from a distance because they wouldn't let me play with them. And it came to the point, my desperation was so much that I offered them bribe. I said, okay, you can keep, my pocket money, you can take it. Just let me play with you. And they wouldn't. So I thought, okay, I guess I'm just this ugly duckling. I don't fit into this group. What should I do? And I started paying attention and being more focused on my studies. And I got so good at studies that when the schools started, I became, the class rep. And when I became the class rep, all those girls now are coming to me for help. And like 2-3 years in, and now I'm tutoring those same girls, and they are paying me. Their parents are paying me for tutoring them. And I'm like, wow, that was the first time when I really learned that you don't have to settle or belittle yourself to adjust to a group if you are not meant for them. Look for what your path is and continue on that path. Your journey is unique. You don't have to diminish your light in order to fit the darkness. So it can apply on so many levels. But I love how you and we resonate on that level. But your life story is so intriguing and so inspiring, because I appreciate all the experiences that we go through in this life, and I would want to know more. So tell me, All right. So thank you so much, Elaine, for joining me for this beautiful, exciting conversation. You have lived such a beautiful and rich life, and I want to know all about it. And my audience wants to know how it started, where you are right now, and everything in between, because you have played so many exciting roles. And I believe you have a worth of knowledge, wisdom, and experiences to share with our audience, and everybody can learn and see those experiences from their own point of view and get the message and apply that message onto their own life. Because I just love what your life looks like and how you have a perspective on your life. But before we dive into that, I would love to ask this signature question that I ask all my guests. What does the word bloom mean to you?
Well, of course, initially I think of a flower, and then I compare that to us as human beings, and that we all have a life. The life force is universal to all living things, and it's up to us to nurture our strengths and to really hone that life force and learn how to trust it, which can take many years. I understand that, but that by doing so, and we do that through self-awareness mainly, we can actually we become more and more and more, and we never stop becoming, because that, just like any organic thing, any organic living thing, a tree, it doesn't know not to become.
Hmm.
And and that is what it's all about. And I have learned that through many setbacks, where I was shocked at how I came back with such energy and vigor and passion again. And I thought, I did. My book is coming out tomorrow, and I get the proof copy in the mail from Amazon, and then I can press.
Congratulations.
If everything is good, I can press publish, and in it takes you. I'll be 65 in March, and so there's a lot of layers to my life. It's been multi-layered, with feeling like I've lived kind of many lives, and so each story captures is a snapshot of a particular as part of the path, and I don't know, do you want me to give one example of a
Please.
story, or
Yeah, go ahead.
let's see. Well, we did touch on I did touch on isolated motherhood. So I have a story called Reluctant Mother, and it takes you through getting pregnant at 19, having learned that I should marry the first man that I had sex with, and which I did, and coming from a scarce childhood, which is actually the first story in the book, called Wild Child, so now here I'm in the second chapter. I'm married, and I'm really struggling, and that's when I first get mental health treatment as an inpatient. And so it's an exploration of a psych unit and what it's like to be there. And back in the 80s, it was a very the modalities were really suited to healing. They had the resources, and then I take you through some of the abuses that were into alcoholism, and how comparing my husband with my father, who was not an alcoholic, but he was not the greatest protector, because he was probably so overwhelmed with 5 children and a wife, my mother, who was very neurotic, to the extent that she barely functioned. She made dinner, did the wash, but she did not socialize. She hardly left the house. And I, as an empath, I would learn later that I took on all of that helplessness and a lot of the neuroses. So I just felt like so incapable of, I was really afraid of graduating high school. School was my grounding. School was where, felt safe, and I got recognition and validation. And and so the thought of graduating and then what? It was like, then what? Because no one ever spoke to me about my life, about what, what to do. I was making my own decisions when I was 5 years old. I mean, I was raising myself. We were all raising ourselves, my siblings and I. And there were no kinds of family traditions. There were no holiday celebrations. Were very painful. They were triggers for my mother, especially Christmas. So that was like dreaded, because you knew she was going to go into some kind of scary state of being. And she had a traumatic childhood. So, it was a generational thing, which I didn't know as a child. And all I knew was that she was very different from other mothers, and that she, was not really taking care of me that well. So when I got married at 19, it wasn't as if I married him to get out of the house, but I don't know how I would have gotten out of the house. In hindsight, I didn't have the social skills. I didn't have the emotional maturity. The only thing I had was an intellectual abilities. But you need to know how to talk to people. You need to know how to manage your feelings. And I was just like clueless about all those skills. And so I would have to go on to learn all of that, to learn socialization skills, to observe people, see how they talk to one another, and say, oh my gosh, how do they do that? They're like telling a whole story. I want to be able to do that at some point in my life. And so I was a keen observer, of social behavior in order to learn how, to live. And so anyway, the marriage was really and not a good fit, because he was an alcoholic that I didn't even recognize when we were dating. When he drank, his personality changed, but I didn't know any of this, So that was for 7 years. We had 2 children, and then I went back to college. I had a year of college after high school. Because a friend of mine told me what program she was in. So I applied to it and I got accepted. I'm like, because I didn't know what I was going to do. School was ending. She's like, well, go to this school. Okay. That was like the universe, would always send me like people in my, do this, do that, for guidance. And, I didn't realize that back then, of course. But so after I started to work as a medical coder, I decided that a year into that, I decided that I would leave my marriage, and I did, and I got an apartment, and I brought the children with me, and he was he just wanted to be adverse in any way he could, and it was a real bad experience for the children because anyway, so that's a whole nother story. We would go on to have a custody fight that would last several years, which he would win, because by the time the custody hearing was held, they had been living at his house, had his home, and he had remarried. I had brought them to live there after 2 years of being with me because the pressure was so great. And I just really felt like they would be safer with him because I had this blurry blend of reality where I was about to cross over and hit them. And I said, and I pulled myself back mentally, and I said, I can't handle this. This is too much to manage clinical depression and single parenthood with an ex who won't even talk to me. Yeah. He remarried and he just cut me out of his life. And it was so I brought them to live with him, and which he wanted. He wanted me out of the picture completely. And that's the name of my book. The name Raising, Razing. Number one, it's because I did raise myself. And number two is because he and unfortunately a couple of siblings and several other people did want me raised from the face of the earth. They would have been just as happy if I was gone completely. And then also raising is like a transformational kind of, that's a third meeting, which applies as well. Because had I not done all the work in self-awareness and in spiritual growth, I would never have transformed out of the victim mentality.
Yes.
And that took many, many years, and and sometimes it would be falling back into it, but I never really recognized it for what it was until 2018. And that was only 6 years ago. So I was in my late 50s, and it was like, oh my gosh, like that's been at the bottom of all of any drama and conflict has all stemmed from that one concept of scarcity I never felt that life owed me anything. And I always was prepared to deal with consequences. Even when I was 19 and got pregnant, I was prepared. I got pregnant. I will now get married and raise, be a mother. That's it,
Yeah.
And always taught my children, there's consequences to all the decisions we make. So it wasn't as if I was a poor me kind of person, because I wasn't going to let mental illness dictate my life, and it was something I had to always consider and always balance. Taking self-care was always number one, and would go on to be misinterpreted as me being self-centered for narcissistic reasons, even by my children. When you have this kind of illness that affects your mood and your energy,
Yes.
unless you're going to put self-care at the first and foremost, you are going to fall through the cracks of society.
True.
That's just the way it's going to be. So people weren't comfortable with me saying no to things because I would say no. I was never one of those women who had a problem saying no. I was never concerned with being liked. I was always concerned with being respected and taking care of myself, because that's what I knew. That's how I raised myself. I had to take care of myself. I didn't have parents that were going to, step in. I used to get a phone call when I was about 10. We had the phones, they would hang on the wall in the kitchen, and there was a cord, and it only went so long, so there was no privacy. When I would come home after school, and someone would hand me the phone, or I would answer it, and it'd be a man, and he was calling me regularly. And my siblings would just hand me the phone. It's for you, Elaine. So you see, I raised myself. And then at one point I said to this man, well, I want to see who you are.
Okay.
And so we agreed he would meet me at the schoolyard. So little old me, 10 years old, goes to the schoolyard alone, expecting to meet a grown man, because I was frustrated that this person was calling me and I didn't know who he was. And luckily he didn't show up. Luckily I wasn't abducted, because it could have easily happened. And that's what I mean about not having parents. I really, they were there physically. That was about it. And you have there's always trade-offs in life, right? There's always trade-offs. It depends on what, I traded off friendships. I traded off community in order to be healthy, in order to make sure I didn't end up in the hospital.
Yeah. That is so fascinating that you raised yourself all the way from your childhood into picking a man that, you got married and you thought that's the only way out from the life and maybe next chapter in your life. And you learned so much in the process, right? You dealt with your mental situations. You were hospitalized in the mental institutions. And you navigated life basically without any outside support. And it makes me think what it looks like for a child, whose parents are in the picture physically, but they are of no support, of no help. And the part where you say, you have to teach yourself social skills and communication skills and how to communicate normally with other people. This is really something that makes me think that, wow, this is so important that, in certain societies, for example, I come from Pakistan, and I was raised in a way that the women would be having conversations even in our house. My mom would be engaged in those, other women, with those other women in conversations, just discussing regular stuff or telling each other stories. And I would be told, okay, you cannot stay here, just go do your things. You don't want to be listening to these conversations. And I think on a very on the same note as you, I didn't learn much about life and what are these conversations, what are these women talking about, and I wasn't prepared for life myself. I was very good at studies, and that's the only thing I know, right? I was good at studies throughout. I became financially independent at a very early age, which was 13 years old, because I started tutoring my own class fellows at that time. And then I became a teacher at a very early age. I would teach in the school during the summer vacations, and so on and so forth. But I never really learned the life skills. I was never street smart kind of person.
Well, here I was street smart. That, yeah. Oh, yes. I lived, I grew up on the streets. I was never home. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like a hard street smart. I didn't know I was street smart until I was challenged about something. And then I would come back, like, you're not going to do that to me, and I'm not going to put up with that. And like, even though I was like putting up with this husband, that was abusive, there was a part of me that was like, this ain't gonna last, this can't, I'm a fighter. And, I think you get that, and a survivor. So you hone your intuition, you read people a little better, and you get, you're more in touch with your instincts. And that's street smart. I think that's street smart.
Yeah, that's true. And I became that person, over time, but I had to learn this very hard way. I had to go through this first very abusive marriage, and, then start to rebuild my life again, and lived for at least 10 years, just rebuilt my life, had great opportunities in my life. Started my own business, built my own house all by myself, and taking care of my entire family, including my son and myself. And then I got married again. And it looks like I have a nose for certain kind of men. And then, I became a victim of human trafficking. So, but this time I was somehow more prepared. So the moment I saw the red flags, and before going too deep into that, I said, okay, no, this can't be happening again, right? I'm this 30 plus years old woman. I have to, find resources and be resourceful enough to get out of this situation. And I was in America at the time. I did not speak the language. I didn't know anyone over here. All I knew was, okay, the law here works. So if I reach out to authorities, they would be able to provide some kind of assistance and help to me. And that's how I started, for the third time, started to rebuild my life. And I'm so happy that I did. I started with learning the language, because at the time I did not speak English. I knew English in terms of reading and writing, but not speaking.
Yeah, I think that's where we have a lot in common, that we've started over several times in rebuilding, and found ourselves at square one. And one of my stories is called Merry-Go-Round, and it is where I start going into conventional careers, and where I'm hitting, I'm hitting walls, and then I'm like getting symptomatic with illness, and then I'm like, okay, I got to reinvent myself. And so, and then I go into unconventional paths, and then it's back to square one. And it just, it's a it was like a merry-go-round, because but fortunately, when I remember once in the 80s, I watched a movie called Babette's Feast, and in that movie there was a line, and she said, an artist will always survive, or something like that. And I took that to heart, because I didn't know I was an artist, but I knew that I was good at shape shifting, like I didn't hesitate to like, oh, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to be a belly dancer because I always wanted to be a dancer as a child. And through belly dancing, I began to celebrate my sexuality and get over and process a lot of the Catholicism that I was raised with. And so then it was okay. This is working for me. Working full time in office is not working for me. So I'm going to go back to college again. I'm going to work part time in the office. I'm going to belly dance, and I'm going to be a substitute teacher. So I'm going to have 3 streams of income that will, they'll together. That'll be good. And I can pay my child support, which he kept taking me to court for more and more over the years. I can pay my child support. I can pay my bills. And this works for me. And I'm a student again. I love being a student. So, and then I would, then I would find my next footing in a venture such as school teaching, which wasn't a good fit again, but I pursued it for 5 years until I finally realized, okay, time to move on from that. Then it was back to square one. I'm back working in the office. I'm substitute teaching, and I'm belly dancing, and then it was just, okay, I'm 45, and I really don't see what other people get out of doing the same thing in their lives over and over again. I need change again, And then I went to school and to be an esthetician, which turned into doing massage work, which morphed into tantra, which morphed into sex work as an escort at my home, which was on the basis was probably depression, because it was a mood swing that my libido was super high, and I kept getting propositions in my own home, and from the massage, and then it was just like, oh, what the heck? Why not? I'm single. And then that led to the Vice Squad doing an investigation on me, because what I started to do was I thought, well, again, I raised myself. So when I come up with intuitive hits, I take them really seriously. So I got a hit that was like, hey, why can't men and women play like we did as kids? So I put a website up. I knew nothing about kink. I put time for play. They could meet with Nurse Betty, who would give them a spanking. Or they could meet with Mistress with the twist. She would give them it depended on the persona. They want a spanking for Mistress with a twist. A mistress will give you a spanking. Yes. Do you want to be reprimanded? We have an executive here. She's going to reprimand you. A schoolmaster. How about that? It was always a dominant female persona. And so I put all these personas out there on the internet. And I'm telling you, I got a great reception. And men were asking me things that I was clueless about. One of them was like, do you do CBT? And I said, well, you're going to have to tell me what that is, because I don't know anything about kink. And meanwhile, I'm making a living at kink, by doing these role plays.
Right.
And cock and ball torture. Really? So how do you do that? Oh, well, that depends on you. You can do it any way you want. Oh, really? Oh, okay. So get this. Oh, God, I was going to the sex stores often, so I got this cock ring, and I put fishing weights on it, and I tied a rope on it. And so if a man wanted CBT, he would have to wear that, and I would tug on it, as I was assuming a persona.
Yeah.
So I realized how good I was at acting and impromptu acting, and I had a lot of fun with it. And sometimes I couldn't believe it was making me so much money, because I was really, really enjoying the creativity, the creative aspect of it. And there would be times when I would start laughing, and then I would incorporate that into the role play. Oh, mistress is laughing at your puny little male thing. And they loved it,
Yeah.
They just love this type of humiliation. Certain men love this type of humiliation. I had one client, he wanted to be humiliated in public. So we met at a sex store, and I went on to reprimand him for not following, I would just make things up. I want to see that whip over there. No, that's not the right one. No, not that one. Can't you even get me the right, get over my knee right now. So he really liked that. And another man who wanted to be what's called cuckolding, humiliated by a woman being with another man. So I said, we're going to meet at this bar. And so we did. And I asked my boyfriend, please come to this bar. And well, we went together, but I said, we go in separately. I go in with my client. And so we sat together, ordered a drink. And then I got up, started mingling around the bar. And when I got to my boyfriend, who was planted there, the flirting really took off. By the time I made it back to my client, he was sitting there and he said, this is great. He said, another couple asked if I wanted to go with them to somewhere else because they felt sorry for me. But that's what he wanted. That I don't judge people. That was one of my things. You can come to me and even just talk to me, which many men did. They just wanted to talk about, I'm thinking about this all the time, this fantasy, and am I normal? And I would reassure them that, their sexuality is not a rational thing, and we can't always, decipher it and why it is that gives us a sexual charge, and that the best thing we can do is accept it, and then that reduces its charge, because then you're not fighting yourself. And because if you're fighting, this is why this was the safe place I created was important, because there were many men, and they cannot share. This is what I mean about earlier, speaking to the limitations of what women will discuss about sexuality. These men could not share these types of fantasies because they, the judgment, the misunderstandings would threaten the relationship because as we grow up, this is acceptable type of sex, and anything else is perverse, and so it was good for them to be able to talk about, or even bring over women's clothing that they could wear because they felt a certain feeling when they wear them. They feel certain, and I'm like, okay, well, you can even keep your clothes here, and when you visit, you can put them on. And, and that I'd have some clients that did that. And they, and so they just wanted to relate as a woman, learn how to sit like a woman, walk like a woman. And for some reason, this was, I would explain to them, like, sexuality is like a broad spectrum. And you are, okay, so you like women sexually, and you're married, and that's where you are on this curve. But you're curious, and you want to visit over there. It's just like ordering from a menu. You usually eat this, but you want to try that. That doesn't mean the fear was that if they tried certain things, they would end up stuck there. That, and that was a real fear. Well, I had these fantasies about interacting with another man sexually, and I'm homosexual. And I'd say, I wouldn't put it like that. I would say you identify not as a homosexual, but you have fantasies, and that's the extent of it. And whether you should act on them or not, that's another decision that has to be made, because sometimes acting on a fantasy can not be really what the person wanted. They really just wanted to have that fantasy and share it with someone and receive validation that was okay, rather than acting on it.
Yes.
So, but as far as getting, dressing up, that was, something they could certainly act on, and in that way, it took the pressure off. They weren't sitting in this pressure cooker that one day they would just like do something irrational, because they were sitting with this secret that, when you have to maintain a secret over, for a long period of time, you really are setting yourself up for, instability in some way. Yes. Possibly. The other thing is you're lying to yourself. And that's, how can you accept all of yourself if you have to lie? And so it was really, it's really healing. And I still do intimacy coaching, and I still do offer insights into erectile dysfunction and the world of fantasy. I don't do the personas now, but I certainly converse with men on on these sexual concerns.
Having this avenue or the outlet for men to come in and, talk about their fantasies with a person who understands them and who is able to, provide a safe space free of judgment. Because I also understand in some ways, all of us, men or women, we have that child inside of us who wants to, play and discover certain aspects of life, whether it's sexual or otherwise. And when the world or the society around us doesn't give us that avenue, we have to suppress that in many ways. It could be just anything. It doesn't really have to be about intimacy or about,
Right.
sexual explorations.
Mm-hmm.
It is anything and everything. And we have to cultivate that mindset. We are more accepting of each other's, personalities, because if we think about it, where did they get those personalities or fantasies? This world around them, they made them who they are, or they cultivated or helped them cultivate their fantasies that they want to really explore. So we should also be tolerate enough, accepting enough and free of judgment to let them explore their fuller self. And that's how we eliminate the trauma from this world, by being non-judgmental around other people and just let them, live their life, basically. Wow.
Yes, yes, most sexual fantasies do stem from a childhood experience. But because we're sexual beings, we have sexual energy from the time we're born. We don't necessarily have sexual arousal. But I know, as from time I was 5 years old, I certainly did. And I certainly made myself feel good, and I didn't have any qualms about it because nobody was shaming me. Nobody was. That's the one thing you don't get a lot. I didn't receive a lot of guidance, but I had total freedom, and whatever occurred to me that would feel good, well, there was no reason not to try it, but fortunately the neighborhood was a stable one. It was a safe one. But yeah, a lot of these sexual fantasies do come from maybe it was a powerful teacher, and the child just had feelings that they just could not contain. And then it sits in their subconscious. And as an adult, oh, I get so turned on by women in glasses. Why is that? And, it could go back to that powerful impression that a teacher may have made. So you can't always trace it, but sometimes you can. Yeah, yes. Sometimes you can.
Wow. And see, this is the beauty, what I love about you being open, and at least living in America and having the culture of being able to discuss things openly and having that open mind to explore things and do experiments. That is very helpful, and that is why we have the greatest inventors and creative people who come forward and they talk about their experiences that we all can learn from.
Yes, but you see, while I was delving into all these areas, I didn't have friends that were, I was in my own world. And an artist doesn't mind that, because if they're getting their freedom by expression, it doesn't really matter if they have friends. But so it takes a certain kind of courage. It takes a certain kind of stubbornness and audacity.
Yes.
To say F you to the rest of the world, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and nobody needs to know, Yes. And when I did get arrested, I was like, what the heck, man? I mean, it's only a school teacher gone rogue. There's nobody hanging from the rafters. I think they were really disappointed, because there were cop cars in front of my house and behind my house, and there were at least a half dozen from the vice squad that came into my condo. And I they wasted a lot of money, because all it was a charge for prostitution as a misdemeanor. And at 50 some years old, I was okay with that. I knew I wasn't going to be an employee again. And so I could own that. I was just fine with that. I am happy, though, in I think it was like 2018, a law was passed where, before anyone could do a criminal search on the internet, and they could see a misdemeanor in prostitution. And, that was not fair, because you could not really, so it was hurting a lot of people, because, as employees, and, because this one mess up in life where they went down a wrong path, which shouldn't, be haunting them forever. And so they did pass a law that only, under certain circumstances, legal ones, and not even available to the police, could records be obtained on misdemeanors that go back, a certain amount of years, if the person never was arrested again, that kind of thing. So that was a good thing. Yeah, I felt good about that. And the other thing, the spiritual path was always something that spoke to me. And in the spiritual realm, in true mystics, their lesson is non-judgment.
Yes.
Even Jesus was a mystic, and that was his main message, non-judgment. There's no reason to forgive, because you shouldn't be judging in the first place.
Exactly.
And I did study A Course in Miracles a few years ago, and the teachings are very profound. And I did put some of the, and unless, you can't just study spiritual principles. You've really got to put things into action.
Yes.
in order to go to that next level of enlightenment.
True.
And so I would have, I would receive intuitive hits about how I could go to that next level. And one of them was, okay, whenever you see a homeless person, you're not going to worry about where he's going to use your money. You're just going to have money available to give to him or her. And that's what I did. I would, when I go, like if I were going to New York, if I was going into Philly, I have 1s, 5s, 10s available. And before they would ask me, I'd be handing out money. And because I knew I needed to do this to grow spiritually.
Yes.
I needed to do an energy exchange with them. They were giving me something that I couldn't have gotten in other ways. They were giving me a kind greeting, a blessing. And I said, this is enriching my life. And it wasn't about the category of homeless, the category of, once they had that energy of money, that was theirs to do whatever they wanted with it. The other area that occurred to me, the other little mission that I was sent on was with customer service. It was now decided, my Heavens team, I call them. I mean, I don't have a dialogue, but, I just intuitively, I knew that the next area I could grow was whenever I was talking with a customer service rep. I could call them by their name and I could ask them how their day was instead of treating them like an object. Just get me to solve my problem. That's your job, Yes. And so I began to work, and to put that into place. And and your heart opens, your heart. And this is what, mystics teach. Live with an open heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and don't just be a hermit, a spiritual hermit, be active in the world. And that's what you're doing, Yeah. And it's feeding your soul.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's the journey of a modern mystic, is to be in the world and to be saying, this is, to be an activist. And you don't have to be, I'm not talking about marching and fighting and this, and, I don't believe in that, because I don't want to put anger into the world.
Yes.
And if I were a part of a protest, I would have to be angry. And I had tried that a couple of times and I didn't like it. And as I studied more about, spirituality, I thought, there's something called holding space, living with an open heart, because, we're like a wave in an ocean. And then like throwing a pebble into a pond. and then it's vibrations. We're all energy. So then you put a higher vibration, you're sending a higher vibration, you're an antenna. So everyone, if we would do our own work and not worry about what's happening, all the time, that we can't do anything about anyway, because the powers that want to be are going to play their evil games, you know? And there's no point in getting caught up in that kind of drama. It's a world stage, and it's all designed to make you fearful so that you lose your power and you give it over to them. You pay your attention to the screen.
Yes.
No, I don't fall for that anymore. I haven't watched a news program in 5 years because I have better things to do with my heart than to reduce the frequency of it.
Wonderful.
By subjecting, and I won't. And there's lots of different entertainment I'm leery of as well, as you probably are, because it's all low level emotion, dense emotions.
Yes.
And it's designed to put you in a denser state of vibration. And you think, oh, it's just TV. It's not just TV or just a movie. It's subconsciously going into you as an organic organism. And you can't manage that if you're doing that regularly. That is going to manage you ultimately. And that's why it's being done, to manage you.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
And so the only way out of that is to see it for what it is. And then live your life, bring joy into your life in any way you know how, and the ways that, that make you feel joyful, and recognize that there are opposite forces that are always, this is a world of duality. There's always going to be perceptions of good and evil, and that's just the way the world is always going to work.
It is absolutely.
Until we evolve.
Yeah.
And there is an evolution of consciousness that is taking place. More people are learning to be the observer of their thoughts, and more people are learning that they can choose whether or not that thought is serving them.
Yes.
And they can discipline their mind. So as more people learn to train their minds, then their hearts will be more in sync.
This is a powerful message, towards the end. I'm looking at the time. I don't want to end this, but we have to. But I just want to reiterate what you said, that, until we experience, our true self, and we are open, non-judgmental, first of all, recognizing our own truth, who we are as human beings, we are mind, body, and spirit, and we learn to operate from the spirit place, and then accept the experiences that we have in this world as neutral. I personally think, no experience is good or bad. We as a soul chose to come into this world and have those experiences because we wanted to learn certain lessons. The moment we try, and start to label those experiences as good and bad, we restrict our own growth. And when other people try to blame us or, shame us or stigmatize us, that is when the society is playing a role, and they are, restraining you from growing and learning your lessons. And that's where you get stuck, and a lot of negative energy builds up inside of you. So as a society, and society is made up of individuals, we must start working on our own individual self. And as you said, Elaine, we should be watching our own thoughts, right? What thoughts are coming to me, whether they are serving me or not, and absolutely not be judgmental towards other people, because I don't know why people don't understand. There's not enough time to invest into your personal growth, let alone, have that time to judge other people and judge them negatively. My God, this is how we started our conversation, that, you were complimenting me, I was complimenting you, and it was such a beautiful feeling. And we wondered why not more people do this? Why don't other women, more women do this? this, to elevate each other and, support and encourage each other, this would be much beautiful place that we live in, and we would be more open to accepting ourselves and accepting the experiences, and really understanding why we had that experience, what lessons can we learn from that experience, and move on and grow and evolve, which is our ultimate purpose to come in, in this physical reality into this world. This is such a powerful conversation. I'm so glad that we had this time to chat, and I'm so happy for your book coming out. I would love for our audience to know where they can go and find your book, connect with you, and if they want to explore and want to work with you, where can they do that?
Okay, well, the book you can find on Amazon. It already is listed there, and it will be available soon. So it's Raising Elaine, Razing. And I do have two websites. If you want to contact me for a guest appearance or about my book, you would go to raisingelaine.com. If you were to contact me for intimacy coaching, that website is Soul Times, and that's spelled soul, and times is TYMES.com. If you search my name on Google, Elaine Miles with an I, you'll see my sites. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. And I would love to, have another episode where we can go deeper into spirituality, because I love you speak so beautifully and eloquently about spirituality and discuss those deeper truths that more and more of us need to know, and, need to invest in that part of us, as you said beautifully, as a collective, until we all get to a certain level, we will continue having all kind of miseries and traumas that are, recreating themselves over and over and holding us back as a humanity, as a collective humanity.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love that. And I also appreciate you so much for openly sharing your wisdom and your experiences to encourage more women to come forward and talk about their experiences without having the shame or stigma attached to it. Because honestly speaking, again, I would repeat myself that any experience that we have in this world, it's not your personal, it's everything that society has given you. You were not born with those experiences. You born as a clean slate, and as a clean paper, and everything that society wrote on you, that is, theirs. So you have to be able, and I encourage every one of you to share your experiences so others can learn from it, and maybe as a society we can get better, to avoid the pain that we inflict at each other and take care of
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, I think if we went we didn't keep things on a superficial level with one another. We really have to be adults and talk. I mean,
Yes.
about meaningful things. Turn the TV off. Who the heck cares about the TV shows? Let's talk about life. Let's talk about, the joy. What brought you joy yesterday? Uh, you know, because most times people talk nonsense.
Yeah, we have this small talk all the time, right?
Mhm.
It means nothing. It teaches us nothing, and
Teaches
it
us
doesn't.
nothing, right? And when we could be uplifting one another, tell me
Yes.
something, tell me something that I'll tell you something I like about you, and you tell me something you like about me, like just like fun little creative ways to appreciate one another. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to coming back and speaking more about spirituality and how it's really not like complex. It's very practical.
Yes. Yes.
And it
It's
really does reduce the drama in your life.
absolutely. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more to that, Elaine. So thank you so much again for your time. Everyone, thank you for staying with us for this whole conversation. I'm sure you enjoyed it just as much as I did. And if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, Bloom with Ansa, please do so. And give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and press the bell icon so all the future videos can reach to you. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you. Take care.
Take
And
care.
at the end, I would say my motto: chase your dreams and live with passion.